didn't unmute my audio, but I think we're good now. Excellent. Thank you, Angel. Hello, everybody. I don't know what day of quarantine this is, but it's been a little while. Hopefully everybody's doing okay. We've talked to I see a number of names that I certainly recognize. We recognize on the listeners and the attendees today that we've certainly had conversations with over the past few months here during this disruption and such. So I wanted to take a minute just to review what we've done thus far with our webinars. The first one we had was actually back on March 13th, and that was an opportunity for us as a firm to address and share a lot of the questions and our thoughts in terms of what clients and other contacts of ours were asking about the current disruption. And then the next webinar that we had was more focused on peeling back the layers of our firm, Beck Bode and Boss Retirement Advisors, and giving everyone that was here a chance to meet some of the individuals other than Jim and myself that you may not have met. And that included Meg Curry, our co-director of financial planning, Mike Kelly, our head analyst and a huge part of our investment committee here at the firm. And also our Angel was on that call as well, who you just saw a moment ago, as well as our presenter today, who I'll get to in a moment, Misty Lynch, our other co-director of financial planning. The third webinar we had, our last webinar that we had, focused on more of a live Q&A session with respect to some of the things that were currently on our attendees' minds, certainly, that gave you the opportunity to type in as we were speaking some questions that perhaps came to mind. And we also had put out a number of emails prior to that webinar to gather some questions that we could address during that. And we got some great feedback on that. And I do want to mention that as I'm going to wrap up here in a moment and hand it over to Jim, and then we'll introduce Misty. But as you're thinking about something during whoever is speaking, please don't hesitate to either go to the chat function on your screen and type in a question, or certainly, if it's not this forum that you want to ask that, you can certainly send an email if something comes up that you really would like to get an answer on or maybe talk further. Please don't hesitate to do that, because this is what this forum is for, to have these conversations and start these conversations, really. So I'm going to hand it over to Jim here to have a few thoughts about what's to come in the future weeks here. And then after Jim has introduced Misty, and we'll go from there. Jim.
Great, and I appreciate it, Ben. As Ben mentioned, this is I believe our fourth webinar that we're doing. We're being a little bit more strategic on some of the upcoming ones in the near future. And as always, we open them up for friends and family as well as our current clients. So feel free to pass these invitations along when you get them in your email. As far as the replays, feel free to send them along. On the top side of my computer, I can see right now that we're live on Facebook, which is a new feature even for our firm. So we are embracing technology here. But next week, we're going to be hosting our webinar at noon, so a little bit of a time change, and we are going to have Rick DeLugash, who is the managing partner at Waldron Rand, as a CPA, talking about some of the tax changes that have occurred the beginning of this year, as well as due to some of the changes in our current environment. And he'll also talk and have the ability to talk about the small businesses and the small business owners, how they are affected with different types of loans as well. And then following that one, we will be having Andy Robertson, who is an expert with Social Security, talking about Social Security planning, obviously in this environment, and answer questions that people might have around that. So I urge you to share this with friends and family, have questions for us. Don't hesitate to tap into the bottom of your screen where it says chat, and you can type in a question. We'll do our best to answer it with the time that we have. But that's what we have coming up in the next few weeks. And I will turn it back over to Ben to introduce Misty.
Fantastic, Jim. And I think everybody will agree, Jim looks fantastic with a longer head of hair there. It's, you know, there probably are some people on the call that suffer from my syndrome where the more my hair grows, the balder I look. But maybe another unexpected product of the quarantine, that we can't go out and get haircuts right now, which is mind-boggling. But in any event, let's move on to Misty Lynch. So Misty joined us at the beginning of this year in the role of financial advisor as well as co-director of financial planning. So prior to us, she was the director of compliance at John Hancock, and then subsequently moved into a role to head up all financial planning on behalf of the firm. Attained her CFP, Certified Financial Planning designation, in 2011. And all you have to do is go to her personal blog on finance, or take a look on Facebook or other social media mediums to see how much of a passion that she has for not only talking about topics that are relevant for today in terms of finance, but also being a leader for women. Not only women with respect to the family environment and handling finances, but also women professionally, where still in many industries, but certainly in the finance industry, women have a growing but still a small part that really needs to change, and has been changing. And you know, Misty is doing great work there, and certainly a great representation of our firm. So today, she is going to talk about some of the ways that you can manage your money during this disruptive periods, gain clarity around your income and expenses, and really put yourself some ideas and some thoughts of putting yourself in a better position going forward, considering everything that's happening around us and really in any environment. So Misty Lynch, take it away.
Thank you, Ben. So yes, we're in a really, really strange environment when it comes to money. And I think that it's not pleasant for a lot of us, but it is a really unique opportunity. So if I was to ask my clients, 6 months ago to go ahead and for 6 to 8 months, just don't leave your house, don't spend any money, don't go shopping, no more bars or restaurants. Why don't you keep the kids home too? Don't see your family, celebrate holidays, by yourself. And, I'd also, cut your husband's hair and see how that goes. I wouldn't have any clients. There's nobody who would voluntarily do this. However, if you've ever done any sort of a cleanse before with like your diet, or with something that you were with exercise, trying to start a new habit, it really is an interesting time to see what comes up for you that you really care about. There's a quote I like that says, when everything is uncertain, everything that's important becomes clear. And I think after going through this for just even a couple weeks now, we're really seeing like, what do we miss the most? What have we been okay going without for a little bit? Maybe Saturdays wandering through Target has changed to taking the dog for a long walk. And maybe that has felt just as good. So I think it's a really good time for people to take a look at their spending and take a look at their budget and see how they can, wrap their heads around it and maybe make some changes when things start to get back to normal to see how they can feel more confident going forward. So the first thing, for everybody, spending has changed, like I said, due to this COVID-19. Spending on restaurants, entertainment, sporting events, that's all gone down. Things that have gone up have been things like streaming music, gaming systems, and alcohol. So there's a few things that have shifted in the US economy where money that was spent one place has shifted somewhere else. And I think that that's pretty normal. When you can't leave your house, it kind of makes sense that a lot of those things would change. But we all have basically 2 different types of expenses all the time. And those would be our fixed expenses. Those are ones that doesn't necessarily mean they're more important. It just means they're more predictable. So that's going to be things like your mortgage, your utilities, your rent, those subscription payments, car payments, things like that. Those are the things that you can put down on paper and pretty much know every single month they're going to stay the same. And then you have your variable expenses, and those can fluctuate. They may be the things that are most important to you, and that's fine. But that'll be things like restaurants, takeout, shopping. And now's a good time to look back at things that you've spent money on, like looking at your old statements, maybe from January or February, because unlike normal, where you would judge yourself harshly for that expensive vacation or that that big dinner out with your friends, you're not going to feel that same sense of guilt or shame, considering right now you can't do those things. So you might look at that and say, you know what, that was great. I think I want to make sure we go on a vacation every single year. Good. Start to plan for that and put that into your budget and into your planning. But then maybe look at some of the other things like, wow, I can't believe how much I spent on takeout or fast food. And maybe if that doesn't feel so great, or it feels like maybe what you're doing now might be a good substitute for that, like meal planning or shopping or doing a bigger grocery trip, maybe you can make that swap going forward. And now with expenses, typically what I do is look at like what we need to pay, look at debt, look at, what we have for interest rates. Instead, I think there's a different way to look at our expenses right now. Importantly, what must be paid in full? And that's going to be things like your food, food for you, food for your pets. You can't usually, walk out of the grocery store without paying in full. So that's something that you need to think about. Those are the ones that, a lot of the stimulus check money, anything like that is going to go to right away. Other things that you can maybe put on hold temporarily are important now too. And that could be things like your federal student loans. If you or a family member has federal student loans, you might want to check to make sure that no action's required if you're on an automatic payment plan. But those loans, I would put those off because they are saying you do not have to pay these for this grace period. There's going to be no negative impact. And if you're on a loan forgiveness path, those payments are going to count. So that's something that you can, put on hold temporarily. And also some things you might want to look at is maybe your mortgage payment. Now, don't automatically sign up for that. I think what you need to do is take a look at the terms. And so if they say, yes, we will tack 3 months of mortgage payments at the end of your 30-year term, okay, that might be a good way for you to save money now and then pay later when things are more normal. Now, if they say you can put that on hold for 3 months, but in 3 months, we want those 3 months plus the current month paid in full, that could be not worth it because you might not have any idea how you would come up with 4 months worth of rent. And then you might have to do something like do a loan modification, and that could hurt your credit, and it just could be more trouble than it's worth to try to find a way to, make that payment and take from somewhere else. I think that's, sometimes I've seen that with car payments. I've seen that even with car payments around the holidays. I remember once when I had an old Jeep, they said you could tack on the December payment into the end of the term so you have more money. And I think I was in my 20s and I took them up on that offer, and there was really no negative effect of that, except I had more money in December and I had to pay an extra month at the end of the term. So look at that. I think that's important. Also, next thing you can look at is there might be some things that you can pay at a reduced level. So things like your gym membership. My gym is not open. They're doing streaming services and they're still asking their clients to pay, but they are offering to say 20% off or, skipping a month or something like that. So I think that there's something that you should look at as well. Utilities, you might be able to negotiate with them too. Check with your provider. A lot of them are waiving late fees. The FCC has asked data and internet providers not to cut off service right now. So if you can't pay that bill, they might not shut your phone off because they want to either keep people safe or this is just not something they want people to not have access to their phones right now. Credit cards, they're usually very used to working with people. They've got whole teams of people that work with clients who need to make adjustments to their payment cycle. And even auto insurance companies, some of them are starting to say, hey, no one's driving. We're going to either cut back on how much we're charging or refund some of those premiums that you paid. So I think it's good to check and see what your carriers are doing and reach out to them, know how to contact them. And then there's other things that I want you to think about canceling or stopping for right now. Those are going to be the unused, expensive subscription services. If you have an iPhone and you go to your settings and you take a look, if you click on the thing that looks like your picture and you click on that, and then you'll see something called subscriptions. If you click on that, you might see some things that you don't even remember subscribing for. because you downloaded an app a few months ago and it said this is free for now. In 30 days or in 90 days, we're going to charge you $39 for the service. So there might be certain things that you don't even know. So check there and see if there's any payments that you could stop. Kids' activities are going to stop for right now. You know, those things that you're signing up for, the lessons, you know, I would definitely cut back on those things. And then saving, you know, you could always cut back on some of your savings. You're going to want to increase that to the normal level once you get back on your feet, but you can maybe pause certain contributions if you wanted to right now, so you have more money in your pockets. Okay, so once you take a look at your expenses, it's important to look at your income sources. First will be compensation. If you're still working, that's great. And that's going to be something that you're going to want to know exactly how much is coming in every month. If you received a stimulus check or you are thinking that you will still be receiving one in the future, you know, that's $1,200 per adult, $500 per child under 17. And a lot of people have already gotten those. A few people that I've talked to won't. If you did well the last time you filed your taxes, you know, and you had a household income over like 100,000 or joint under about 200,000, you're not going to get a check. If you had that in like 2018, 2019 and just lost your job, unfortunately, those checks are not going to come to you. It also doesn't really help college students or people who have adult dependent children because of the age limits, but it should help most Americans a little bit. Another source of income is going to be furlough. If you're furloughed, you still have a job. You should hopefully still have your benefits, but you won't get your paycheck until, you know, business is back open. If you're laid off, unfortunately, that means you are out of a job. You would need to reapply or apply for a new job going forward. But they did extend unemployment insurance for another 13 weeks. So that's good. That means 39 weeks of unemployment is available. But some problems with the unemployment insurance system is that it is not meant for large volumes of people at one time. It's meant to transfer risk from a very, you know, small group, one person to many. And I think that that is something that's going to be reevaluated as far as how, you know, people are trying to claim unemployment. They can't get through. They have to be very, very persistent and patient. But, you know, I think that it is definitely the way to go. If you can file for unemployment right now, you should. There's an extra $600 that the federal government is giving each person. And so people who normally made under $50,000 a year are going to actually see just about the same paycheck or a little bit higher. So I think that's a good way to get through this time if you need to. And also you could look at things like if you had any money in a flexible a health savings account or a flexible spending account. If you're not working anymore, that might not be something you can access, but that normally money would come with you if you did separate from service, if you had an HSA. And if you have expensive medical bills right now or something going on, you could use that. So next, if you need more income, so if there's a shortfall, if the expenses are too high and you need to find some ways to make some new income right now, here are some of my ideas. Aside from filing for unemployment, if you are due for a tax refund and you haven't filed yet because you have more time, I would go ahead and do that right away. We filed fairly late in the normal season and we got our refund very quickly. You can still look for a new job. I know this isn't something that people really think they can do right now, but it is a good time. You could connect with your network. You can update your resume to include your last position. I think you should expect a slow pace. I think that there's going to be, you know, not as many people in HR getting back to people or working in a big corporate office, but a lot of people might think that now's not the time to try to find a job. And so it might be an interesting, you know, if you feel confident, you know, interviewing online or talking to somebody over the phone, I think this could be an okay time to continue to keep trying. There are still companies that are hiring. There's still companies that are busy working. It's just going to be a little bit different. Also, there's going to be some increases in freelance and temp work. I've seen that. I've seen some people giving me some really good suggestions for companies that need bodies right now. One example would be the state needs people to contact other people who have been impacted by COVID-19. They need to talk to all of the people those people have been in contact with. And so that's basically something that a person could do from their home. They just need a phone, computer. But there's a push to fill that staff up. Also, you can sell things. We cleaned out our garage, and yesterday I put a child's outside playhouse on a Facebook marketplace because my husband was about to put it on the curb. And I got 14 bids on it within a few hours. And I even got a story about how tomorrow was a girl's second birthday, and it was, you know, their dream to get this cottage, but it wasn't going to ship until May 9th. And I felt like I was selling expensive real estate in Back Bay and looking at the most, you know, heartwarming story that I could do. And the woman, I did sell it to her. She came with her truck and brought it home around 9 o'clock at night last night. So that's something that was going to be on the curb that now turned into, you know, $50. So that's great. So look at what you have. If you have old gaming systems, if you have clothes, you could put those for sale online. You know, you could really get creative. And it is a little bit fun to sell things, especially turning things back into money does feel pretty good, especially if it was just going to be something that cluttered up your house or, you know, went out in the trash. And then finally, you can know where all your bank accounts are, all your retirement accounts. If you have money at old employers and you've kind of lost track of it, eventually that'll just become unclaimed property. You know, find out where your money is and how you can get your hands on it if you need to. You know, they have expanded some of the 401k withdrawal and loan provisions, and same with IRA withdrawals. This isn't the first choice I would suggest anyone making, because this is basically money for future you that, you know, you're also going to need someday. So if you can look at any of the other options that are going on right now and available to you, but this is good to know. It's good to know where your money is all the time and who you have to talk to get it if you need to. So that's definitely something you'd want to get organized. As far as self-employed people and business owners, pretty soon in Massachusetts, the pandemic unemployment insurance is going to open up. I believe the date is targeted to be April 30th. And so that is great for people who, you know, have never had access to the unemployment system before. So if you're self-employed, I would definitely get ready to learn how to file for that. And then as far as the economic injury disaster loans and the PPP loans, if you might have seen in the news, those have already been completely, you know, wiped out. But I do think, I'm confident that they'll probably have another round of funding for small business owners. I think people are seeing that Ruth Chris got $20 million of that money, and they were hoping for the, you know, some of the mom and pop businesses to be able to get a piece of that as well. That might have been boxed out this round. So still be prepared for that. I think you should have everything, you know, in line in order to file in case that's something you're able to take advantage of, but maybe you missed out the first time. Another thing is some loans and some grant money. And grant money is different. You don't have to pay this back. Yesterday, I was talking to a prospective planning client who's like a Airbnb superhost. And there's a grant for $5,000 for Airbnb superhosts for any expense that they need to pay that they can apply for starting at the end of the month. There's a website, savesmallbusiness.com. And that if you type in your zip code and you're in a heavily impacted area, you might have grant money that's available to you to take advantage of for whatever business needs you have. Applying for these things, just like if you were applying for grants when you were going to college, it takes time and effort, but you have time now. And I think it would be worth it to get any access to any income that you can, especially if you don't have to pay it back or tap into any of your savings in order to get by in this time. Finally, I think there's just a few things you could do as well if you feel like you want to, you know, get yourself in a good place when things get normal again. You can always invest in yourself. I think you're attending this call right now, which is a great sign. I mean, this is you spending time to hear what's going on, to stay current. I mean, season 3 of Ozark is so good. You could be watching that right now. I mean, but instead you're doing your work, you're listening to a call that we're putting on for you. And I think that that's great. There's tons of free podcasts, training, e-courses, all of this stuff. People are putting out as much content as they can. Take advantage of that. If there's anything you wanted to learn or any new skills you wanted to develop when you go back to work, you have maybe a little bit of a time advantage right now to do those things. Get organized, know where all your accounts are, clean out your purse or wallet. If you have to just do one thing a day that makes you feel better and more organized, you could do that. I mean, I think that that's something that all of us might want to do, get rid of those old receipts and just kind of feel a little bit of sense of order. And also just allow yourself to feel what you're feeling. You know, we usually feel like a need to react or resist or kind of avoid our feelings, but it's okay. It's okay to feel frustrated. It's okay to feel strangely calm. You might have gone through some bad financial times in the past yourself. You might have had to, you know, go down to a really tight budget And, you know, you might just be using those muscles again, and maybe you feel oddly calm and like you're going to get through this. And that's fine too. I think that's okay. I think that there's all sorts of things. I mean, none of us at work, I mean, we know what it feels like to see the market drop and bounce up and down. And we know our clients are struggling in that. And that's why we're showing up. I mean, it would be very easy to not do webinars, to not talk to people, to not answer the phones. And I think that that's just not who we are. So I think there's definitely certain things that you could do. And, you know, I think you definitely choose, no matter how tough the circumstances are, you know, how you're going to choose to approach it. So I'll hand it back to Jim and to Ben, but I think that this, you know, maybe this could be a good time for you to start focusing on, you know, the things that you really care about. And then hopefully when everything gets back to a version of normal, you feel really good about what you're doing with your money.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Misty. Fantastic job. Some fantastic ideas. And I think everybody listening can agree, just there's an incredible amount of resources out there that Misty has talked about over these last few minutes. And, you know, on your last point, Misty, it really rings home, you know, how in so many ways it's very easy to fall victim to the negativity if we're just sitting there in our homes and watching what's out there on the media. And I think when you say, you know, in so many words, get up and do something, educate yourself. If it's merely cleaning out your garage or your pocketbook or whatever it is, or attending webinars like this, or focusing during these and any really disruptive times on something very productive and educational, and just a great resource. Thank you, Misty, for you know, sharing with us the number of different ideas that anybody can do financially or otherwise, you know, to put themselves in a better position. Excellent, excellent. Well, I want to, we're pushing up against 3 o'clock today. I want to thank Misty, everybody on our panel, as well as everybody that attended, listened, and watched today. And then again, we will be holding these webinars as we have on a weekly basis with various guests along the way. Feel free to write into us, social@beckbode.com, or directly to any of us with ideas. If you have questions about a specific area in finance in particular, for example, Jim mentioned that we have a few upcoming speakers on tax and Social Security, Medicare, but anything that's on your mind that is probably on others' minds, and we want to you know, be a resource and cover those topics and areas. So please feel free to contact us and let us know. Obviously, if you have on your own more questions, in-depth questions about your own finances, and even if it's just a few mere curiosity questions, contact us, contact Misty, contact Meg Curry, our other Director of Financial Planning. Friends and family that you know that have questions that might need some guidance, even if it's just merely a phone call. We're here to add value and provide a service for you and the folks that are close to you. So I'll end there. I will appreciate everybody being on. Thank you again, Misty, and we will see everyone next week. Thank you.